Well, the project I'm working on now, I actually have a contract, and I'm behind on it with Beacon Press, and it's to really write a book on a series of questions about the history of American education. Again, questions that are still relevant in our own times. And there are several parts to it. But one of the things I want to write about has to do with issues of citizenship and immigration and education. And I'm particularly interested in what it implies for civic education, because Americans are, in my view, quite confused about a number of civic issues: the meaning of immigration historically in American society, the meaning of citizenship historically in American society. And it comes up in all kinds of ways. I mean, one of the things that interests me about the question as to whether the president is a citizen is not the birther question, but people have introduced notions about a distinction between a citizen and a natural born citizen, as if somehow it has some founding in American constitutional law, or somehow it's a part of the American creed. Well, these were questions that were debated and debated for months on end in 1866, when they actually framed the 14th Amendment, and it was passed by Congress and later ratified by the states in 1868. But it's not like this is a new question. This was a question at the heart of the 39th Congress. You know, what is an American citizen? What is citizenship? They also simply revised the naturalization law in 1870. So there were all kinds of questions about aliens, about illegals. These are questions that's been in American history again and again. And every time they come up and they bring up issues of race, of ethnicity, of national origins, there's a certain amount of hysteria and nativism that come with it. And the book that I'm working on now is, part of it will be an effort to sort of say to the American public, if we had elementary and high school students that had a good civic education and are going to be informed voters, here's the kind of understanding they would have about their nation, about their history, about questions of citizenship, and so forth. And I think it's sorely needed now. I think civic education has been overlooked in American schools for a long time. But when you watch American politics and you watch American talk shows, and you watch cable news and things like that, you realize that we've had generations to grow up without a good civic education, and it's really starting to make a difference in terms of how we think about the country, about law, about religious liberty. Something, you know, that's one of the things that I'm not really writing about. But when you think about that, if you read Jefferson and you read Madison and others on these questions, they're very clear about these questions. We now have a view of that that's entirely different than the Founding Fathers, and yet we think that our current views of religious liberty were views held by the Founding Fathers. And you say, what happened to civic education? I'm not saying that you have to agree or disagree with them, but at the very least you should know what they stood for and the principles on which they wrote the Religious Liberty Clause in the Constitution and things like that. So it does have a lot to do with civic education, but also other questions as well.